The dust on Threnody 7th had not been disturbed for 50,000 years. Dr. Kang Dae-ho brushed away another layer of ancient sediment from the crystalline structure buried deep in the ruins. The dead world's twin suns cast long shadows across the excavation site, where his team had been working for 3 months. "Dae-ho, you need to see this," called Dr. Park Soo-jin from across the dig site. Her voice carried an excitement that made him look up from his careful work. Soo-jin was not easily impressed. She had spent her career studying the maps and charts of dead civilizations, and very little surprised her anymore. He walked over to where she knelt beside a large crystal formation. Unlike the other artifacts they had found, this one seemed to glow with its own inner light. The surface was covered in the flowing script of the Vorthak Empire, a civilization that had vanished from the galaxy long before most current species had developed space travel. "What is it?" Dae-ho asked, crouching beside her. "I think it's a data vault. Look at these symbols." Soo-jin pointed to a series of markings near the base of the crystal. "These match the navigation charts we found on Kepler Station. But this is much more complete than anything we've discovered before." Captain Lee Junwoo approached from the landing pad where their ship waited. The Harmony's Edge was not a large vessel, but it was equipped with the best archaeological scanning equipment the Kepler Institute could provide. The orbital scans are showing more structures buried deeper. "We might need to extend our stay here." "Not yet," Soo-jin said, her hands moving carefully over the crystal surface. "Help me get this to the ship. If I'm right about what this is, we need to analyze it properly." The three of them, along with their small team of graduate students, carefully extracted the crystal and transported it to the ship's laboratory. Once they had it secured and connected to their analysis equipment, the crystal began to respond to their scanners. "It's definitely Vorthak technology," confirmed Dr. Nam Haiwan, their language specialist. She had joined the expedition specifically to study Vorthak texts, but the data structure is more complex than anything we've seen before. "Give me a few hours to work on the translation protocols." While Nam Haiwan worked on decoding the crystal, the rest of the team continued their excavation. But Dae-ho found it hard to concentrate on the other artifacts. Something about the crystal felt important, more significant than their usual finds. That evening, as the twin suns set over the barren landscape of Threnody VII, Nam Hye-won called them all to the ship's main display screen. The crystal sat connected to their computer systems, its inner light pulsing softly. "I've managed to access the primary data layer," she announced. "It's a star map. But not just any star map. This appears to be a complete navigational chart of known space from the height of the Vorthak Empire." The display screen lit up with a three-dimensional representation of the galaxy. Thousands of star systems appeared as points of light, connected by lines that showed trade routes and territorial boundaries. It was beautiful and comprehensive, showing the galaxy as it had existed 50 millennia ago. "Look at the detail," whispered Soo-jin. "They mapped everything. Every inhabited system, every trade route, every—" She stopped, staring at one section of the map. Captain Junwoo leaned forward. "What is it?" Soo-jin pointed to a region of the map that appeared different from the rest. While most systems were marked with symbols indicating colonies, trade stations, or resource extraction points, this area was marked with different symbols entirely. The Vorthak text around it was written in what appeared to be a warning format. "Nam Hye-won, can you translate those symbols?" The language specialist worked quietly for several minutes, cross-referencing the symbols with their database of known Vorthak writing. When she looked up, her face was pale. The direct translation is disturbing. The main label appears to say the Demon's Garden, or possibly the place where devils grow. There are additional warnings that translate roughly to Death Spawn Nest and Where Ships Go to Die. "What system is it marking?" asked Dae-ho. Captain Junwoo was already running the coordinates through their navigation computer. The answer came back within moments, and his expression changed to one of confusion. "That's impossible," he said quietly. "What's impossible?" Soo-jin demanded. "Those coordinates, they point to a system in what we now call the Orion Arm, a yellow star with 9 planets. He paused, checking his readings again. "The computer identifies it as Sol System." The laboratory fell silent. Everyone knew about Sol System. It was the home of humanity, one of the newer members of the Galactic Confederation. Earth was known throughout the galaxy as a peaceful agricultural world. Humans were friendly traders and skilled diplomats who had joined galactic society only 200 years ago. There has to be a mistake, said Nam Hyewan. Humans are, well, they're human. They're not demons or death spawn or whatever these warnings are talking about. But Su Jin was studying the map more carefully. Look at this, she said, pointing to additional symbols around the Sol system marker. These appear to be dates or time markers. And look at these other symbols. She traced her finger to several other areas of the map, all marked with similar warning symbols. All marked with dates that appeared to be progressively earlier. It's not just the Vorthak, she realized. Look, here's a symbol that matches the script we found in the Eternal Tide Empire ruins. And this one looks like Silicon Commune markings. Captain Junwoo ran searches on the other coordinate sets. Each one came back with the same result. Sol system, Earth, humanity's homeworld. Multiple civilizations, across thousands of years, all marked the same system as forbidden. Daeho said slowly. All marked Earth as a place where monsters live. They spent the rest of the night going through the data, finding more references, more warnings, more evidence that ancient galactic civilizations had marked Sol system as a place to be avoided at all costs. The warnings were consistent across cultures and time periods. Something dangerous lived on the third planet of that yellow star. As the twin suns of Threnody 7 rose on another day, the archaeological team sat in their ship's laboratory, staring at evidence that challenged everything they thought they knew about humanity. What do we do with this information? Asked Nam Hyewan quietly. Captain Junwoo was already planning their next move. We research. We find out why multiple civilizations feared Earth. And then he looked at the star map, with its ominous warnings about humanity's homeworld. Then we decide if we need to tell someone about what we've found. The crystal pulsed with its inner light, holding the secrets of ancient fears about a world that modern galactic society knew only as the friendly home of humanity. 3 weeks later, the research team had assembled at the Kepler Archaeological Institute's main facility on Centauri Prime. The crystal from Threnody 7 sat in a secure analysis chamber, connected to the most powerful computers the Institute possessed. Around the conference table sat the original team plus several new experts who had been brought in to help understand their discovery. Dr. Nam Hyewan had barely slept since they returned. She had been working around the clock with the translation protocols, and her findings grew more disturbing each day. The crystal contained far more data than they had initially realized, layers upon layers of information from multiple civilizations. I've found 17 different warning systems about Sol, she reported to the assembled group. The earliest date I can confirm goes back nearly 60,000 years. The most recent is from about 40,000 years ago, just before the Vorthak Empire collapsed. Commander Cho Min-seok, a military historian who specialized in ancient conflicts, leaned forward. What exactly do these warnings say? Give us the specific details. Nam Hyewan pulled up her latest translations on the main display. The oldest entry, from a civilization we don't even have a name for, simply says, "The pale ones who do not yield." The next chronological entry, about 55,000 years old, is more detailed. It describes creatures who fight without energy shields, who damage their own bodies to damage others more. That doesn't sound particularly frightening, observed Dr. Yoon Tae-young, the xenobiologist who had joined their team. Most primitive species fight without advanced technology. Wait, said Nam Hyewan. There's more. The same entry describes these creatures as impossible to defeat because they do not understand defeat. It goes on to say that when one falls, others become stronger. When many fall, the survivors become unstoppable. She clicked to the next translation. This one is from the Eternal Tide Empire, about 45,000 years ago. They sent 3 exploration fleets to the system. The first never returned. The second sent back 1 transmission. They board our ships. They fight in vacuum. They do not die when they should die. Captain Junwoo felt a chill run down his spine. And the third fleet? The third fleet was their largest battle group, 50 ships including their most advanced dreadnoughts. Nam Hyewan's voice grew quiet. The last transmission from that fleet was, "We are being boarded by creatures that should not exist. They are using our own weapons against us. They are learning as they fight. Do not come here. Mark this place forbidden." The room fell silent. Everyone present had met humans. They were known for being friendly, helpful, and peaceful. The humans who served in the Galactic Confederation were diplomats, traders, and farmers. They seemed utterly normal. Commander Minseok broke the silence. I need to cross-reference this with military databases. If there were actual battles, there should be archaeological evidence. Debris fields, wreckage, something. Over the following days, the team dove deeper into their research. Commander Minseok discovered records of massive debris fields in the Sol system's outer regions, debris that had been assumed to be natural asteroid formations. When analyzed with their new perspective, the metal compositions and distributions suggested the remains of large-scale space battles. Dr. Yoon Tae-young made an equally disturbing discovery. I've been analyzing the biological descriptions in these ancient texts, she announced during their morning briefing. The creatures they describe have several impossible characteristics. They're said to function normally in multiple atmospheric compositions, survive in vacuum for extended periods, and continue fighting with injuries that would disable any known species. How is that possible? Asked Dr. Park Soo-jin. It shouldn't be. But I ran comparisons with human medical data from the Confederation files. Yoon Tae-young paused. Humans do have unusual biological resilience. Their immune systems are remarkably adaptable. Their cardiovascular system has multiple redundancies, and their psychological recovery from trauma is faster than most species. Lieutenant Kim So-young, a young intelligence analyst who had been reviewing communication logs, raised her hand hesitantly. I found something else. In the ancient records, there are descriptions of the pale demons doing something that doesn't make sense. What? Asked Captain Junwoo. They apparently formed alliances with other species during battles. The texts describe creatures from the Forbidden World fighting alongside members of species they had been fighting against moments before. Kim So-young looked puzzled. One Vorthak battle report says the Pale Ones turned our own soldiers, not through mind control but through some form of loyalty corruption. Our warriors began protecting the invaders instead of fighting them. Dr. Nam Hai-won nodded grimly. I found similar reports. Multiple civilizations described the same phenomenon. Their own people would switch sides and begin fighting for the creatures from the Death World. That's impossible, protested Yoon Tae-young. No species can inspire instant loyalty in other species. Commander Min-seok had been quiet for most of the meeting, but now he spoke up. Unless they weren't inspiring instant loyalty, what if they were inspiring something else? Like what? Think about it. We know humans are friendly. Every species that has met them in the modern era describes them as unusually helpful and cooperative. What if that's not just diplomacy? What if that's actually how they are? The room considered this. It was true that humans had a reputation in the Galactic Confederation for going out of their way to help other species, even at cost to themselves. So you're suggesting, said Soo-jin slowly, that ancient civilizations encountered humans who were so genuinely helpful and loyal that it convinced other species to protect them? I'm suggesting that maybe the ancient civilizations weren't wrong to be afraid, Min-seok replied. They just didn't understand what they should be afraid of. A species that can turn your own soldiers into allies isn't using mind control. They're just being so genuinely worth protecting that others choose to protect them. Dr. Nam Hee-won pulled up another translation. There's one more thing. The final entry in the crystal is from the Vorthak themselves, dated to just before their empire fell. It's different from the others. She read from the display. We have learned the truth about the Pale Ones from the Forbidden World. They are not demons. They are something worse. They are hope. Hope? Asked Kim So-young. The entry continues. They make others believe that impossible things are possible. They make others willing to die for ideals. They spread the dangerous belief that tomorrow can be better than today. This infection of hope is more dangerous than any weapon. It makes beings do things they would never do alone. The conference room was completely quiet now. Everyone was thinking about the humans they had met. The humans who served alongside other species in the Confederation. The humans who were known for their optimism and their belief that any problem could be solved if enough people worked together. Captain Junwoo finally broke the silence. So what you're telling me is that for 60,000 years the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy marked Earth as forbidden, not because humans are monsters, but because they're inspiring? Dangerously inspiring, corrected Nam Hai-won. According to these records, contact with humans caused the collapse of at least 3 major empires, not through conquest, But through ideological transformation, Commander Min Seok looked around the table. The question now is, what do we do with this information? Do we report it to the Confederation? Do we tell humanity what we've found? Or do we keep this secret? Outside the conference room windows, the lights of Centauri Prime's spaceport showed ships from dozens of species coming and going. Many of them carrying human crews working alongside alien colleagues, all of them part of a galactic civilization that had grown more cooperative and hopeful since humanity had joined. The crystal from Threnody 7 continued to glow softly in its analysis chamber, holding the secrets of why ancient civilizations had feared the most helpful species in the galaxy. Against every regulation and safety protocol they knew, Captain Lee Junwoo had made the decision that would change everything. The Harmony's Edge was now approaching the Sol system, carrying a team of researchers who were about to visit the most feared world in ancient galactic history. All sensors active, reported Dr. Shin Woo-jin from the science station. I'm detecting multiple artificial satellites around the third planet, also picking up radio transmissions in human languages. Nothing that suggests monsters. The past month had been spent in heated debates at the Kepler Institute. Commander Cho Min Seok had argued strongly against the expedition, pointing out that if the ancient warnings were accurate, they could be flying into extreme danger. But Dr. Park Soo-jin had argued just as strongly that they needed to see for themselves what had frightened so many civilizations. Distance to Earth orbit? Asked Captain Junwoo. 30 million kilometers in closing, Shin Woo-jin replied. I'm also detecting what appears to be a defense fleet. 12 ships in patrol formation around the outer system. Lieutenant Kim So-young looked up from her communications console. Captain, we're being hailed by one of those ships. It's a welcome message. Put it through. The main screen flickered and the face of a human appeared. He was middle-aged with graying hair and a warm smile. Behind him, the bridge of his ship looked remarkably similar to their own. Greetings, Harmony's Edge. This is Admiral Park Chan-ho of the Earth Defense Fleet. Welcome to Sol System. We've been expecting you. Captain Junwoo tried to keep his voice steady. Expecting us? The Kepler Institute filed a research request 3 weeks ago for a cultural exchange visit. We're always happy to host fellow researchers. Would you like an escort to Earth orbit? Or do you prefer to approach independently? The archaeological team exchanged glances. This was not what any of the ancient warnings had prepared them for. The demons were offering them an escort. An escort would be appreciated, Junwoo replied. Excellent. Follow our lead ship, and don't worry about the security scans. Just standard procedure. We'll have you in comfortable orbit within a few hours. As they followed the human ships toward Earth, Dr. Ro Ji-hoon, their psychologist, studied the human admiral's image on their recorded transmission. Did anyone else notice how casually he mentioned expecting us, and the way he said security scans like it was routine? What do you mean? Asked Dr. Nam Hye-won. Most species treat first contact situations with unknown ships as significant events. He acted like we were neighbors dropping by for coffee. As they approached Earth, the planet resolved into view on their main screen. It was beautiful. Blue oceans, white clouds, green continents. They could see the lights of cities on the dark side of the planet and orbital stations that bustled with activity. It looks normal, whispered Park Soo-jin. Too normal, added Commander Min Seok. Where are the defenses? The weapons platforms? If this world has been at war for 60,000 years, where are the fortifications? Dr. Shin Woo-jin was studying his sensor readings. I'm detecting what might be defensive systems, but they're not active. It's almost like... He paused, running more scans. It's almost like they're not expecting any threats. The human escort ships guided them to a parking orbit around Earth's largest space station. Almost immediately, their communications console chimed with an incoming message. Harmony's Edge. This is Ambassador Song Mi-kyung of the Earth Diplomatic Corps. We've prepared quarters for your team on the station, and we have a full cultural exchange program ready if you're interested. We're particularly excited to share some of our recent archaeological discoveries with fellow researchers. Captain Junwoo accepted the invitation, though every instinct told him to be cautious. Within hours, their team was aboard the human space station, walking through corridors filled with humans and aliens working side by side. Ambassador Song Mi-kyung met them personally. She was young, energetic, and seemed genuinely excited to meet them. Welcome to Luna Station. I hope you had a pleasant journey. I understand you're particularly interested in our historical records. Dr. Nam Hee-won decided to test the waters carefully. We've discovered some ancient references to your system in our archaeological research. References that are quite old. Oh, how exciting. How old are we talking? A few thousand years? We've had visitors before, though not many kept detailed records. The team exchanged glances. Song Mi-kyung's casual attitude toward ancient visitors was unsettling, especially considering what the ancient records said about those visits. Much older, said Nam Hee-won carefully. Perhaps 50,000 years or more. Song Mi-kyung's eyes lit up. Really? That would be during our pre-civilization period. What did these ancient records say about us? We're always curious about how our ancestors appeared to other species. Dr. Ro Ji-hoon stepped forward. The records describe conflicts, battles. They suggest that contact with your world was dangerous. For the first time, Song Mi-kyung's cheerful expression changed slightly. She looked thoughtful rather than worried. Yes, that would make sense. Humans 50,000 years ago were quite different from modern humans. We were still developing agriculture, still very tribal. Contact with advanced alien species probably didn't go well. The records suggest that multiple civilizations sent fleets to this system, said Commander Min Seok carefully. Large military fleets. And they were all defeated, added Nam Hee-won. Song Mi-kyung nodded as if this was completely reasonable. Oh, that sounds about right. Early humans were very territorial. If alien ships showed up and looked threatening, our ancestors would have fought them. Probably not very successfully at first, but humans are quick learners. The casual way she said humans are quick learners sent a chill through the research team. The ancient records had described the same thing in much more terrifying terms. Would you like to see our military museum? Song Mi-kyung asked brightly. We have a wonderful collection of historical weapons and battle records. Very educational. Before anyone could object, she was leading them through the station toward what she called the Cultural Heritage Center. As they walked, she chatted cheerfully about human history, mentioning wars, conflicts, and survival challenges as if they were interesting anecdotes. Of course, the ice ages were difficult, but they taught us a lot about working together under pressure. And the volcanic winter from the Toba eruption really helped our ancestors develop their problem-solving skills. Dr. Yoon Tae-young whispered to Dr. Shin Woo-jin. Did she just describe a near-extinction event as helpful for problem-solving skills? As they entered the museum, they were greeted by displays of human military history stretching back thousands of years. What struck the alien visitors immediately was not the weapons themselves, but how the exhibits were presented. Every conflict was described in terms of lessons learned, innovations developed, and alliances formed. Here's one of my favorite sections, said Song Mi-kyung, stopping in front of a display about something called World War II. This was when humanity really learned the importance of international cooperation. Before this war, we were very divided. Afterward, we started working together much more effectively. Commander Min Seok stared at the casualty numbers displayed next to the cheerful description of international cooperation. Over 50 million dead described as a learning experience. Dr. Ro Ji-hoon was beginning to understand something that made his hands shake. The humans weren't hiding their violent past or trying to seem peaceful. They genuinely saw their history of constant warfare and survival against impossible odds as normal educational experiences. Song Mi-kyung led them to another exhibit, and this section covers our early space exploration. We lost quite a few crews in the early days, but each failure taught us something new. By the time we made contact with the Galactic Confederation, we had learned enough to be helpful contributors. She said this while standing next to a memorial listing hundreds of names of astronauts who had died in space exploration accidents, their deaths treated as noble sacrifices for knowledge. As the tour continued, the research team began to realize that they weren't visiting a world of monsters. They were visiting a world where monsters would be considered normal, where surviving impossible challenges was treated as routine, and where beings who would terrify other species simply called themselves human and went about their daily lives. The invitation to visit Earth's surface had seemed like a good idea, until Dr. Han Sung-ho, their human guide, casually mentioned that they would be touring some typical peaceful locations to understand human culture better. Dr. Kang Dae-ho and his team stood on the observation deck of the shuttle as it descended toward Earth's surface. The planet looked beautiful from orbit, but as they got closer, Dr. Yoon Tae-young began to notice things that bothered her. Those are remarkably large urban areas, she observed, looking at the sprawling cities below them. How do you manage resources for so many people in such concentrated areas? Dr. Han Sung-ho, a cheerful human anthropologist, shrugged. Oh, it's not too difficult. We've had a lot of practice with overpopulation problems. Plus, humans are pretty good at making do with limited resources. Engineer Bae Yu-jin, who had joined their team specifically to study human technology, asked, "What do you mean by a lot of practice?" Well, we've had several population booms throughout history. Each time we figured out new ways to feed everyone and keep society running. Sometimes it required some difficult decisions, but humans adapt. The way he said difficult decisions with a slight smile made the entire team uncomfortable, though none of them could quite explain why. Their shuttle landed at a facility that Dr. Han described as a cultural education center. As they walked through the building, they passed displays showing human achievements in art, science, and exploration. Everything seemed normal until they reached a section labeled Natural History and Human Development. "This is one of my favorite exhibits," said Dr. Han, stopping in front of a display about human evolution. "It really shows how our environment shaped us as a species." The display described Earth as a world of regular natural disasters, climate changes, predator species, and survival challenges that help develop human resilience and problem-solving abilities. What other species would call extinction-level events, the exhibit described as developmental opportunities. Dr. Yoon Tae-young stared at a chart showing Earth's mass extinction events. "Your planet has experienced 5 major extinction events and humans evolved after most of them?" "That's right. Earth has always been a very dynamic place to live. It kept life on its toes, so to speak, really good for developing survival instincts. And humans survived all these challenges?" Dr. Han looked puzzled by the question. "Well, yes. I mean, we're here, aren't we? Every species on Earth had to survive the same challenges. It's not particularly unusual, but it was unusual." Dr. Yoon Tae-young had studied evolutionary biology across dozens of worlds, and she had never encountered a planet with such a violent natural history that still produced complex civilizations. Most worlds that experienced even one mass extinction event never recovered enough to evolve intelligent life. Their tour continued to what Dr. Han called the Physical Education Center. It turned out to be a military training facility, though Dr. Han seemed to think of it as perfectly normal educational programming. "We like to keep our citizens in good physical condition," he explained as they watched humans running through obstacle courses that would challenge trained soldiers from most other species. Plus, you never know when basic survival skills might come in handy. Colonel Moon Jae-sung, the human officer in charge of the facility, greeted them warmly. "Welcome. Dr. Han said you wanted to see some typical human training programs. We're just running some basic exercises today. Nothing too exciting." Engineer Bae Yu-jin watched in horror as humans climbed walls, crawled under barriers, and jumped across gaps that would require safety equipment for other species. One human fell from a considerable height, rolled, got up, and continued running as if nothing had happened. "Is that individual injured?" she asked Colonel Moon. "Oh, Minho. No, he's fine. Humans are pretty sturdy. We're designed to take some bumps and keep going. It's actually one of our better features as a species." Dr. Ro Ji-hoon was studying the humans' behavior during the exercises. What disturbed him most was not their physical capabilities, but their attitudes. They were encouraging each other, helping teammates who fell behind, and treating the dangerous obstacles as fun challenges. "Colonel, how do you maintain morale during such difficult training?" Colonel Moon looked genuinely confused by the question. "Maintain morale? This isn't particularly difficult training. This is just basic fitness maintenance. The difficult training is much more intensive." "More intensive than this?" "Oh yes. Combat training, survival training, crisis response training. But most humans find that kind of training enjoyable too. We like challenges." The phrase "we like challenges" would haunt Dr. Ro Ji-hoon for weeks afterward. These were beings who considered life-threatening obstacles to be entertainment. Later that day, they visited what Dr. Han called a typical community center in one of Earth's cities. Dr. Lim Yun-chae, A human historian was giving a presentation to a group of children about local history. And that's how our city survived the earthquake of 2157, she was saying, cheerfully to an audience of young humans who couldn't have been more than 10 years old. Everyone worked together, and we rebuilt everything even better than before, Dr. Nam. Hewan listened to the presentation with growing alarm. Dr. Lim was describing a natural disaster that had killed thousands and destroyed most of the city, and she was presenting it to children as an inspiring story of community cooperation. Ms. Lim, she asked during a break in the presentation, don't the children find these disaster stories frightening? Dr. Lim looked surprised. Frightening? Why would they be frightened? These are stories about how humans overcome challenges. Children love these stories. They're very educational. One of the human children, a girl who couldn't have been more than 8 years old, tugged on Dr. Nam's sleeve. Are you from another planet? That's so cool. Do you have disasters on your planet too? How do your people handle earthquakes and floods and stuff? The child's casual attitude toward planetary disasters made Dr. Nam realize something terrifying. These weren't just stories to human children. They were instruction manuals. Human society was teaching its young to expect catastrophes and to be excited about surviving them. That evening, Captain Ko Hyun-woo, a human space exploration officer, joined them for dinner. The conversation turned to humanity's expansion into space. We're very excited about the new exploration missions, he said, cutting into his meal with enthusiasm. The Confederation has identified several systems that other species have marked as too dangerous to explore. We're planning expeditions to 3 of them next year. Too dangerous? Asked Captain Jun-woo carefully. Oh, you know, unstable stars, hostile environmental conditions, possible dangerous life forms. The usual challenges that make exploration interesting. Dr. Shin Woo-jin nearly choked on his drink. You consider dangerous life forms to be interesting? Captain Ko nodded enthusiastically. Absolutely. That's the best part of exploration, finding things that no one has seen before. Even if they're dangerous, they're still discoveries. And humans are pretty good at dealing with dangerous situations. What if the dangers are too extreme? What if they could kill your exploration teams? Captain Ko considered this seriously. Well, that's always a risk in exploration. But that's why we volunteer for these missions. Someone has to go first, and humans are, well, we're pretty good at being first. As the evening progressed, the research team began to understand the full scope of what they had discovered. Humans weren't monsters in the traditional sense. They were something potentially more dangerous. A species that had evolved on a world so hostile that they considered galactic-level threats to be interesting challenges. They didn't conquer through fear or superior technology. They conquered through the simple expedient of being willing to try things that would terrify other species, and treating failure as a learning experience rather than a reason to give up. By the time they returned to their shuttle that night, the team from the Harmony's Edge finally understood why ancient civilizations had marked Earth as forbidden. It wasn't because humans were evil. It was because they were fearless, and fearlessness was contagious, as Dr. Roh Ji-hoon noted in his personal log that evening. We have discovered that the monsters of ancient legend are real. They call themselves humans. They are unfailingly polite, and they consider the end of the world to be a fun weekend project. The return journey to Centauri Prime took 3 weeks, and during that time, the crew of the Harmony's Edge had plenty of time to think about what they had discovered. Dr. Choi Dong-min, the expedition's philosopher, spent most of the trip trying to help his colleagues process what they had learned about humanity. The ancient civilizations weren't wrong, he said during one of their daily discussion meetings. They correctly identified humans as dangerous. They just didn't understand what kind of dangerous. Dr. Park Soo-jin was still studying the recordings from their visit to Earth. I keep coming back to that children's presentation. The historian was teaching 8-year-olds to be excited about surviving disasters. What kind of society does that? A society that has learned that disasters are inevitable, replied Dr. Choi. Think about it. Earth has experienced regular catastrophes for millions of years. Humans didn't evolve to avoid disasters. They evolved to survive them and rebuild afterward. Captain Lee Jun-woo was facing a different problem. As the expedition leader, he would have to report their findings to the Galactic Confederation leadership. But how do you explain to a peaceful galactic civilization that one of their newest members is a species that considers extinction-level threats to be educational opportunities. The question is, he said, what do we do with this information? Do we recommend that the Confederation treat humanity differently? Do we suggest increased monitoring? Or do we just file our report and hope for the best? Dr. Nam Hee-won looked up from her translation work. I've been thinking about that final Vorthak entry. The one that said humans spread dangerous hope. I think I understand what they meant now. Explain. Every species that has worked with humans reports the same thing. Humans make other species believe they can accomplish impossible things. They make others willing to take risks they would never take alone. They inspire other species to be more than they thought they could be. Lieutenant Kim So-young had been reviewing historical records of human interactions with other Confederation species. The pattern is consistent. Every species that has formed close alliances with humans has become more exploratory, more willing to take on challenges, more optimistic about solving problems. Is that necessarily bad? Asked Dr. Yoon Tae-young. That depends, said Dr. Choi, on whether you think the galaxy is better off with more species willing to take the kinds of risks that humans consider normal. When they arrived at Centauri Prime, their report created chaos in the upper levels of the Confederation government. President Kwon Soo-hyun called an emergency session of the Confederation Council to discuss the implications of the discovery. Director Lee Hae-won of the Archaeological Institute presented their findings to the full council. The crystalline map from Threnody 7th was displayed in the center of the council chamber, its warnings about Earth glowing softly in the translation matrices. To summarize, Director Lee told the assembled representatives, we have discovered evidence that humanity's homeworld was considered forbidden by multiple ancient civilizations for a period spanning 60,000 years. The reasons for this prohibition were not immediately obvious, but our research suggests that contact with humans had a profound psychological effect on other species. General Jang Kyung-ho, the Confederation's military commander, leaned forward. Are you suggesting that humans pose a threat to galactic stability? Not in the traditional sense, replied Director Lee. Humans are not conquerors or aggressors, but they appear to be infectious. Infectious? Dr. Choi Dong-min stood to address the council. Humans carry with them a particular worldview that seems to spread to other species they work with closely. This worldview treats extreme challenges as normal, considers dangerous exploration to be worthwhile, and maintains optimism in situations that would cause other species to despair. Representative An Seola from the Diplomatic Corps asked, is this necessarily a bad thing? The Confederation has experienced unprecedented cooperation and expansion since humanity joined. That's exactly the point, said Dr. Choi. Humanity joined the Confederation 200 years ago. In those 200 years, we have undertaken more dangerous exploration missions, established more colonies in hostile environments, and attempted more ambitious engineering projects than in the previous 1,000 years combined. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. President Kwon spoke carefully. Are you suggesting that humanity is changing the fundamental nature of galactic civilization? We're suggesting that humanity is making galactic civilization more like humanity, replied Director Lee. More willing to take risks, more optimistic about overcoming challenges, more willing to help each other in dangerous situations. General Jang had been reviewing military records during the discussion. I've been looking at our recent conflicts. In every major engagement over the past century, human crews have volunteered for the most dangerous assignments. But more significantly, other species serving alongside humans have also volunteered for dangerous assignments at unprecedented rates. The pattern extends beyond military service, added Representative An. Exploration crews with human members report higher success rates in challenging missions, but they also report higher willingness among all species to attempt missions that were previously considered too risky. Ambassador Song Mi-kyung, who had returned from Earth with the research team, addressed the council via communication link. I've been monitoring the discussions on Earth about your findings. Humans are fascinated by the discovery, but not particularly concerned about the implications. Their general reaction has been curiosity about meeting the descendants of the ancient civilizations that visited them. They want to meet them? Asked President Kwon. Several human exploration groups have already volunteered to search for surviving populations from the civilizations mentioned in the ancient warnings. They seem to consider it an interesting historical research project. Dr. Ro Ji-hoon, who had been silent during most of the session, finally spoke up. With respect to the Council, I think we're approaching this from the wrong perspective. The ancient civilizations saw humanity as a threat because humans changed other species. But perhaps the question isn't whether this change is dangerous. Perhaps the question is whether this change is necessary. What do you mean? The galaxy is large and full of challenges we haven't faced yet. Unknown threats, unexplored regions, unsolved problems. Maybe we need a species that considers impossible challenges to be interesting projects. Maybe we need a species that can inspire others to be more than they thought they could be. As if to prove his point, Captain Kim Tae-ho's voice crackled over the Council Chamber's communication system. He was commanding the human exploration vessel Wanderer's Hope, currently at the edge of Confederation space. Confederation Council, this is Captain Kim. We've received a distress signal from the galactic edge. Something large and unidentified has appeared near the outer rim colonies. The signal is unusual, definitely artificial, definitely not from any known species. We're requesting permission to investigate. President Kwan looked around the council chamber, then at the ancient warnings still glowing in the translation matrix. Captain Kim, this could be extremely dangerous. The signal could be from something hostile, something beyond our understanding. Yes, sir, that's what makes it interesting. We have a full crew of volunteers from 7 different species, all eager to take a look. Besides, Captain Kim's voice carried the unmistakable tone of human optimism. How dangerous could it be? As the council session ended, the members filed out with a new understanding of humanity's place in the galaxy. The ancient warnings had been accurate. Humans were dangerous. But they were dangerous in the same way that hope is dangerous, in the same way that courage is dangerous, in the same way that the belief that tomorrow can be better than today is dangerous. The crystal from Threnody 7 continued to glow in the council chamber, its ancient warnings about the monsters from Earth serving as a reminder that sometimes the most terrifying thing about monsters is that they might actually be heroes who just don't know how frightening they are, and somewhere at the edge of galactic space, Captain Kim Tae-ho and his volunteer crew from 7 different species flew toward an unknown threat, confident that whatever they found, they would figure out how to handle it together. The ancient map had indeed marked the location of monsters. But as the galaxy was learning, sometimes monsters were exactly what you needed when facing the unknown darkness between the stars.